Welcome to the Tax Alpha Solutions Podcast, hosted by Matt Chansey. Matt is a tax consultant, author, and certified financial planner with almost 2 decades helping his clients grow their net worth. On the show, Matt brings together an array of specialists to share with you their experience and success along with strategies of the 1%. And now, here's your host, Matt Chansey.
Well, thanks everyone today for joining us. This is Matt Chansey, and this is the Tax Alpha Podcast. Today, our guest is Mark Dohnalek, and he is the president and CEO of Pivot International. It's a US-based global manufacturing, product development, engineering, technology company with 17 offices on 3 continents. With over 40 years of experience under his strategic and purposeful leadership, Pivot International has led the company's growth strategy of taking an aggressively calibrated approach to organic and acquired competencies, capacity, expertise, and assets to help their customers meet their market and global clients' needs most effectively. These acquisitions have expanded their innovative capabilities and global offerings in manufacturing, engineering, biometric, security, industrial, consumer, and medical product solutions. Mark holds a degree in economics and business and finance, as well as an MBA in business management and operations. Mark, thanks so much for being on the show today.
Pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. Glad to have you. Well, hey, let's start off and keep it kind of easy. I'm going to throw you a softball. Tell us a little bit about Pivot International.
Yeah, we're a product design and development company and manufacturing services company. So we provide full turnkey product design development and manufacturing services for our clients from inception to idea, the challenge the client might have, to an end product delivered in a box wherever they want us delivered to. So we're complete turnkey.
Paint a little picture. Give me an example of something where you started a product or something that you started with design and that we might know, that listeners might know or be familiar with.
Sure. Well, let's take IoT as a real hot area right now for interactive tracking, preemptive diagnostics, that kind of thing. A client comes to us, says, we would really like, we're a construction company, we'd really like to track all our tools and equipment and the efficiency. And they lay out kind of their needs in the business. And from there, we mutually together design a specifications for what the product needs to do, what's the performance need to be, what's the environments. And from there, we go into a prototyping stage. Then we move, once we prove the feasibility out on that, we move into what we call DFM, which is design for manufacturing, which really means let's make it so it can be cost effective, can be repetitive manufactured, proper quality and repeatability. And from that point, we move into manufacturing. It might be in Asia, it might be in the United States, wherever the situation dictates where it should be made. We have plants around the world to do that.
Very interesting. Complex stuff, not your average everyday run-of-the-mill business going on over there.
No, it's not. It's a pretty complicated business. It's pretty technical. A lot of engineers, for sure. And but it's keeps us busy.
Well, that's good. That's good. That's all we can ask for, right? It's the people behind the scenes doing the lesser understood things that are moving the needle, right?
Right, exactly.
So, the past couple of years has been kind of crazy with, this global pandemic. That's not something that we've all had to deal with before. So what are some of the biggest challenges that you've kind of faced over the past couple of years while dealing with this global pandemic?
If you think about when people go through risk assessments in business and they list all the risks, this was not on anyone's list 2.5 years ago. So it was missing in action. So when we faced this, there were various phases that one went through. First of all, in the early days, we wanted to be assessed as critical and essential, the most important words in America, which has allowed you to continue to operate. Because if you remember, in the early days, everything got shut down. And the only places they could operate were critical and essential businesses, like the Walmart, so people could get their toilet paper, et cetera. And so
which the toilet paper which we couldn't get.
That's right. Didn't realize how important that was. And so we got that. We had 15 or 20 products that were qualified under that edict. And so we kept all our operations. That was survival mode 1, before we knew about the bailouts, before we knew about the PPPs, all the things that came after that. So that was step 1. Then as we moved into mode 2, if you will, phase 2, Then it was about, okay, how do we keep operating? How do we keep designing products? How do we keep buying things and shipping things to keep the business viable? And so, and that took on a lot of different things. And we're still dealing with the retention of employee issue. The whole world is, especially in the United States. I mean, people are challenged by that.
Sure.
As things are kind of coming back to life, that's the new challenge. So this whole thing went in various phases. So it was about supply chain, logistics, things we all read about, and just boots on the ground around the globe. That's what saved us. One of the things that's boots on the ground really saved us because we had people in those markets talking to FedEx, talking to the ports, talking to all the people directly rather than through emails. And so that helped us a great deal with it. Secondly, with our engineering know-how, it wasn't just finding parts. In many cases, we would redesign the current product to design it into an available part that was more available than the things that were missing. So Renaissance was a chip that shut down the automakers, for example. So what we would try and do, you can't do it every time, but we would try and redesign certain products for functionality that could do what we call drop-ins to keep functioning. So it wasn't just chasing vendors. We also used the engineering side to create solutions. That helped us a great deal.
It's very interesting. When you can't find a product, design one that you can get, right?
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
Not everybody has that luxury, Mark.
No, that's right. Most people, they especially when they go abroad, a middle market company, let's say, and is making their widget in Asia somewhere. They haven't designed it. Those people have. So now they're just prisoner to whatever they can do. And you really have limited options. That's really hurt a lot of companies.
Makes sense. So obviously that you kind of really hit there on how you handled some of the supply chain issues. I'd heard that there had been maybe some, and I know you're in the AI space, that there have been some, some chip shortages and stuff. Sure. And how did you guys deal with that? How did that?
Well, exactly the same thing I just described, frankly, is that we had two facets that helped us, that we had a global connection to all those sources. So in some cases, you can't redesign them out because they're specific to that product and its functionality and its performance. So sometimes you had to just deal with that source. But we have multiple connections to Europe, to Asia, to the United States, different levels of contacts. That helped us in the years of business doing with them. So that helped us. But not without its challenges. It wasn't an easy deal here, but we were able to persevere. But then in cases, probably 30 or 40% of the time, maybe half the time, we could identify equivalent chips that could do the functionality that the primary design-in was for, and we redesigned that out. We've done that there's a few fitness products that you've seen advertised. That is a good example of that. We redesigned out a chip on that product to go into another product, to do another chip to use for the same functionality, and it's worked well. So it was a multi-prong attack, and every situation is different,
Interesting. Very interesting. Well, it sounds like to me that there was certainly a benefit from having some global relationships for an extended period of time and not being a new vendor in the space per se. Those long-standing relationships when push came to shove got you what you needed to get.
That's right. That's true. That's why you gotta, if you think about a supply chain just in general, you want to hard negotiate to get good prices and all the things that we all want. But you want to do it in a way that you build relationships, as opposed to the iron fists, where they do business with you because they want to sell stuff, but they don't really like you. So there's a fine line there. People don't think about that. They think it's just going there hard, and some of the big conglomerates do a lot of times. But when you need favors, you need to pull some favors as well.
It's not win at all costs.
Right. Exactly.
Good stuff.
You don't have to chase the last penny. You can build some kind of win-win relationship. So they're more than they're willing to go beyond the kind of the normal have to do action to help you out.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. That's awesome to know that having good relationships and letting everybody not feeling like it's a zero-sum game. It can be win-win. Is extremely
it can work. Yeah.
It can. I agree. So at Pivot International, I know you guys have had a deliberate and calibrated growth strategy through acquisition over the past several years. So can you tell me more about what that acquisition strategy has looked like and how you've executed?
Sure. We've done 9 acquisitions in about 4.5 years, and we've looked at 3 facets to that strategy. technical core competency. How does it broaden our technical chops, if you will? Does that bring in additional technical know-how that we lacked or were limited on? And furthermore, does that provide more manufacturing opportunities by the design projects those firms are doing? So that we acquired 2 engineering design firms in Europe that have really came through in droves on that front. And optical engineering, imaging engineering, scanning engineering, and intrinsically explosion-proof design work for the North Shore oil and gas market. Both those were examples of what we brought in. And then from that, it broadened our breadth as well as provide additional products for us to manufacture. Because we do a lot of design, and this model is designed to provide good engineering services, but we make most of our money by making things. But the engineering is the key to it all.
Sure.
Yeah. So then the second facet was look at broader breadth electronic contract manufacturers that didn't do design but were large scale manufacturers that we could then use our design team to add more product development areas of their customer base while broadening our manufacturing footprint around the globe. So we originally had a US based company with global engineering and largely Asian manufacturing by ownership. And then over the last 7 or 8 years, we've acquired a number of US based manufacturers. And now we have more square footage in the United States for manufacturing than we do abroad, although they're pretty equal. It's about 350,000 square feet of manufacturing space. But that gave us both US footprint of manufacturing and also, design opportunities because most contract manufacturers don't really do product design. So it gave us a 2 facets of opportunity. And the third facet of what we look at acquisitions are product companies. They're companies that make product that we're very good at. We can go in there and use our technical knowledge of engineering know-how and our global supply chain organization and really add value to that product in terms of margins and growing the business and helping that customer grow their business because we can lower their costs. So all 3 have worked out quite well for us.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, so that makes me think the question I would want to ask is, we don't think about an acquisition unless we think it pencils out ahead of time, right? But implementation and integration have a lot to do with it. So looking back, how has the integration been? Has it been as seamless as we hope, or has there been some surprises?
Well, there's always surprises when you buy someone. I mean, there's the one thing you know for sure is you're going to find out things you didn't know. But as a general, but for us, they've been really successful. We're up 3-4 times on each one of them. So across the board, and so it's worked out well. But I look at acquisitions in 2 classifications. There's the old one you always read about in the conglomerates. They buy a company, they look for every synergy they can get, rationalize the costs, take out the duplicate costs. And largely, probably 3/4 of the time, they don't really work that well because they've ruined the culture. They've disrupted things they didn't realize they're disrupting. We've taken what I call the bolt-on approach, which is we leave them intact. We don't look aggressively for redundancy cost reduction. We don't look relentlessly to synergies from a cost reduction, headcount reduction standpoint, but rather we look at how we can add value and have them add value, and the 2 + 2 can grow to a 6, So that's the approach we've used, trying to leave those cultures in place because we generally don't like to buy companies that are losers. That we want them to already be successful, and then we can add to that success. And I learned that many years ago working in a corporation, and I think it's worked for us quite well.
I love it. That's been my favorite answer so far, because everybody else is out there they're so terrified of an acquisition, who's going to get merged out and who's going to lose their job and redundancies and all that. And you're like, no, I want them to just keep being their good self, and we're going to make 2 and 2 into 6. I love it.
Right. You see so often that big companies will buy another company and then they'll write it off 2 years later or resell it. And as well as bad acquisition. That's because you messed it up largely. I mean, most often. Because let's rationalize customer service. Let's rationalize manufacturing. And what they don't realize is they lose things they don't know they're losing. They think they know they've identified the whole business, and then stuff gets missed, and customers lose connection, and all those things. So it's worked for us. It's been good.
Yeah. It's not what you don't know. It's what you don't know that you don't know.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Because I guarantee there's more of those than the other. So for sure. So it's worked. It's been fun, and I don't think I can name one area of headcount reduction. I mean, to be honest with you, we've grown though because we've grown, so we probably leveraged what they otherwise would have had to add. But everyone's up 3 times or more since we bought it.
Very nice. Very nice. So, what impact has AI, AR, VR having on manufacturing or product development? And that's artificial intelligence, virtual reality. Like, how is that having an impact on your business?
There's some preemptive diagnostics that aids to that. I would even put some of the 3D technologies into that category. So that certainly speeds up the turnkey of product development, prototype development, DFM development for sure. So it's moved the timeline in, and it kind of starts to enter into IoT technologies too, which we're very active in. So preemptive type diagnostic technologies we're real active on. We have IoT devices in areas like not just asset tracking, but major equipment around the world that does a preemptive diagnostics of preemptive maintenance needs or repair problems. And so that's more what we see as the major impact of all that. And it's going to continue to go on. It's going to continue to grow. It's going to continue to expand. Sure, in time, you could see it really having a huge impact on how you manufacture on linear manufacturing areas. Customized, which is we're more into, and kind of non-linear type manufacturing, it's going to be more difficult. But lock and load, making a bunch of circuit boards somewhere, that's going to have a huge impact.
So, and when you say IoT, just to be sure for the people that are out there that may not, you mean Internet of Things, right?
That's right. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
That's the big thing. So we're talking about the average person that might not understand this. The Internet of Things is when everything is ultimately interconnected, and our refrigerator and our phones and all that stuff.
That's right. Off the cloud. Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's exactly. And preemptive assessment of when your water cooler is getting low, the guy just shows up, without being called. It's all this preemptive kind of technologies. That's where it's all at. I mean,
isn't that the precursor to Skynet when Terminators took over the world?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. There's some scary stuff to this. I'm not all endorsing the entire pie of this thing, so we need humans still.
We still need some humans.
They still need us, okay?
Understood.
So, question anything about that? This remote work thing for 2 years, even people that were cheering it in the early days, the type of people the profile of people that actually embraced it, now are yearning to get back.
But didn't it speed it up? I mean, right?
For sure.
Technology has always been there, and it's always been trying to do this. And there was a balance between humans and technology. But when the humans couldn't be there, the technology kind of took off.
No doubt about that. If you think about history, like the wars we've been in, the world wars, if you look at the technology advancement of World War II, it probably advanced technology innovation by 20 years. Just in those 4-year period, because there was a necessity for it.
Yeah. And this was another one of those events that just set the technology on fire and made it take off.
You had no choice. You had to do something to persevere. And we had the technology, thankfully, in place that was a usable tool. 20 years ago, I used to do some, conference calls, video calls, and it was like talking to Neil Armstrong.
Yeah, the technology's come a long way, hasn't it?
A little bit. It can still get better, but it's a lot better than it was.
Yeah, that's for sure. It could always be better. So, I mean, we just saw the metaverse stuff coming out before. Soon we're going to be meeting in virtual metaverses, right?
Yeah, that's kind of a wild thing, isn't it? I'm not sure yet what to think of that, but we'll see how it evolves.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I'm not so sure about that one.
I'm wondering. I have my sniffer says it might be a little front running yet.
I would agree with that. It feels like it's way, like, for example, when
Wall Street and all the media people are just embracing it because it's cool.
Yeah,
it kind of reminds me of nanotechnology about 5, 8, 10 years ago. All we read about was nanotechnology. Who's talking about nanotechnology today? not much. You don't hear much about it. Now, this means this isn't going on, but it's not in the media headlights anymore.
Well, it's like the internet in the late 90s. Everything that had .com was going to change the world. Right. And some of those things did change the world, but it took a decade before they had real utility.
It did. Exactly. It's like I read an article once back when that was going on, actually, about the analogy of radio in the 1920s RCA. And the point of the article, it was in the Wall Street Journal, actually, and they talked about the stock price of RCA. And it ran from $2 to $100 back to $2. But eventually, obviously, radio was a big thing before TVs. I mean, but there was a gap. And so it makes you think it's kind of in that kind of type of category.
Yeah, it's what it feels like. It's what it feels like. So you guys have a lot of different companies across the globe. Is there any maybe groundbreaking product that you guys have launched or that you're involved with you can share with us?
Well, a couple of them are kind of neat is that there's 90% of all scripts, and these are critical care scripts for medicine, are taken incorrectly, either too much or too less. So we're have developed a pill box with a microscopic scale on it that has some IoT to it as well, that diagnoses and gives alerts and gives certain messaging to monitoring the proper usage of critical scripts. And the adoption rate has gone from 10% to 40%, although that's still not 100%, but it's a fourfold improvement. And so a lot of the pharmaceutical firms in the world are very interested in that product. So it provides like for elderly care and for hospice people and people that are not in the best of health that aren't cognitively kind of alert, allows them to help them take their meds properly. So that's a pretty cool item. We have another scale, a weigh scale that actually diagnoses largely for elderly that they assesses your health condition, your balance, and can assess certain characteristics about one's health by just being on the scale. So that product's coming out as we speak. So those are a couple of pretty cool ones.
Yeah, well, so we used to have just scales, and then we had scales that could tell us how much body fat or how much water we had, and now we can have scales that can tell us if we're healthy or not.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's quite amazing. Who would have thought, right?
Who would have thought it, right?
Yeah, that's right.
What an evolution. What an evolution.
Exactly. We do a lot of other things too. We made a surgical drill driver for reconstructive surgery, so it has sensors, so it allows the surgeons to more effectively and more quickly put all the reconstruction screws in your bone structures or fixing you up. And so a lot of different things like that. It's not just medical, but it seems like the coolest ones seem to be in medical,
Well, look, anything, I had a friend tell me recently about the hip surgery that he had, how it was a different type of hip procedure where he was back up and functioning in a matter of just a few short weeks instead of months, like some of the older procedures. So yeah, anything in medical technology that gets a human back to feeling human a little bit faster.
Right. Oh yeah. Valuable stuff. Health, what else do we have, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can have time and money, but if you don't have your health, what's the point, right?
That's the problem. Steve Jobs doesn't doing much good right now, does it?
No. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you sharing. So how can our audience today learn more about, Pivot International? And if they wanted to reach out and contact you, how's the easiest way to do something like that?
Best way to do it in two folds. I guess you could go out to www.pivotint.com. That's our website. And from there, you can learn about the company and contact us and all the rest, or email me at mdohnalek@pivotint.com. Probably the two best ways of doing it.
Sounds like a plan. Well, any final thoughts? Anything I didn't ask or anything you want to add?
Well, I think you covered it well. It's been a good journey, and we got more growth to go, and we're looking forward to the post-COVID era.
Probably more opportunity than you realize than you can capitalize on, right?
Yeah, that's true. You are limited with your engineering resources, and so we have about 150 global design engineers, 1,000 total employees. But everyone's looking for technical people in the world. I mean, it's a scarcity right now.
Human capital issues are across the board. No matter what industry, finding good people that want to work is a hard thing.
Absolutely. It's amazing how challenging it is. But
yeah, for one person, it's a challenge. For another person, it's an opportunity if they look at it that way, right?
Yeah, it's easier to recruit people because everyone's looking. So.
Yeah. Just go out and get good at what you need to get good at, and there's an
that's
opportunity for you, right?
That's right. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, Mark, Dohnalek, appreciate you coming on today with Pivot International. Thanks so much for sharing a little bit of insight with your company and the cool medical technology stuff that you guys are, launching out there that's going to make the world a better place.
Well, thank you much, man. And I appreciate the time, and it was a pleasure meeting you.
Absolutely. Well, thanks everyone for tuning into the podcast today. This was another episode with Matt Chancey on the Tax Alpha podcast. Everybody have a great day.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Tax Alpha Solutions, brought to you by Matt Chancey. We hope you enjoyed listening to this week's guests and insight. If you liked what you heard, please consider subscribing wherever you listen to podcasts.